Good morning,
Good morning.
Commissioner. I know you're the first time is speaking at this, but you know, we have your written testimony, so any summarizing would be appreciated.
Sure,
Okay,
in the
thank you.
spirit of keeping things moving.
Yes.
Good morning.
And please, everybody, hearing is still going on. Thank you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Good morning,
please.
Councilman Greenlee and our remaining members. I'm Sarah Stevenson, Acting Water Commissioner, City of Philadelphia Water Department. To my left is Donna Schwartz, our Deputy Commissioner for Operations, and to my right is Melissa Labuda, Deputy Commissioner for Finance. You have our testimony. I just want to say thank you to our 2,000 plus employees who keep the water running and the sewers flowing every day, and I think they probably don't get recognized enough, so I want to just show my appreciation to them in public today. So, we're happy to take your questions.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And again, congratulations on your appointment there.
Thanks.
In your testimony, you highlight the advanced metering infrastructure expansion. Does this technology help to control water rates or your department's cost? And how does it generally improve efficiencies?
So advanced metering infrastructure, what's different about this technology than what we use currently? Right now, all meters emit a signal to indicating usage. We roll trucks every month, or we roll trucks every day, but what that results in is a monthly read for our customers. What AMI does differently is it's called a fixed network. So instead of trucks rolling by, what we'll do is have receivers on poles around the city in several dozen places, and the data will be transmitted at a much more frequent basis, so we can get reads down to the hour. So what this does, particularly for customers, is a great benefit to customers, because instead of if you have a leak, for example, if your toilet running and you don't know that necessarily till the end of the month when you all of a sudden get a really high bill. So what this will enable is a customer can sign up for it, through a customer portal, and you say, if my daily usage reaches a certain threshold, I'll get a notice. So, and all that to say that it really benefits our customers to learn about things like leaks way sooner than the customer can go and call a plumber and get that toilet fixed today versus a month from now. So
you could actually be alerted immediately that if the usage goes up? Oh,
yep.
Wow, okay. Because that could save a lot. I guess that could save a lot. The question of water rates, it might not change the rates, but it certainly changes for an individual. Because sometimes, like you say, if you don't find out, if you start having the leak the second day of the month and you don't get the bill, you're talking hundreds and hundreds of dollars sometimes.
Yeah,
because we see that on occasions.
Yeah, my cousin left my toilet running once over the weekend, and my bill went up by $100. So
yeah, right.
That was just a weekend, right?
So you say they could sign up for this? Is that right?
Right. So part of the package will be a new customer portal, which is I think it'll have mobile capabilities, and even on your desktop computer, where you could sign up for different types of alerts and things like that. So we'll be rolling that out within the next year or so, the customer portal.
Okay. One of the council president's questions, very general, but I know a lot of people would be interested in this. Where do you project water rates going over the next few years?
Where do we predict?
The water rates.
Oh, water rates.
Rates.
Sorry, I thought you said waterways. I didn't hear you. So I'll defer to Missy on this.
Okay.
Hi.
Please identify yourself. Yeah.
Good morning. Melissa Labuda, Philadelphia
Yes.
Water Department. So as portrayed in the 5-year plan, we anticipate that our costs will increase and that rates will be incrementally higher over the foreseeable future. As the rest of the city has experienced, we're having certain rising costs that are out of our control related to workforce costs and chemicals and other basic needs to run the utility.
Mm-hmm. So the things you're required to do are going to keep...
Correct. That's right. To meet our continuing obligations.
So I guess that kind of leads to another question that's here is, the city's required to mitigate environmental damage through green infrastructure investments. Is that right? Yeah.
We're required, the consent ordering agreement requires us to control combined sewer overflows through a variety of techniques, including green infrastructure and traditional infrastructure improvements.
Are they federal? That's federal requirements, or?
Yeah, Clean Water Act, yes.
Okay. All right, I'll turn to Councilman Dom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have several, not that many, but several questions, I guess. I want to walk through the process because we get a lot of calls and I see a lot of issues on the quality of life issues in the city. And a lot is dealing with potholes. And a lot of it then deals with water lines underneath the street that have a leak or a problem. And I guess what I'd like to find out is, what is the procedure if you get a phone call, someone calls and says there's a pothole, and this may be Mike Carroll, perfect guy. What's the procedure of how we're handling things now? And what can we do to improve the service?
So Mike Carroll, Deputy Managing Director for the Office of Transportation, Infrastructure and Sustainability. Thanks for the question, Councilman Dom. So there's a couple things we're working on. I think the general answer to the question what the procedure is, we always want to encourage people to call 311. And I know that some people feel like, it's a frustrating process to work through. We're working very hard to make that better. You can always reach out through the Streets Department website. Sometimes the road in question is a PennDOT road, so that's something that we have to sort out. Also, we want to make sure that we're addressing potholes, ditches, including plumbers' ditches and trenches appropriately, because those are all different things. The water department's work typically will involve some form of excavation. The water department will be brought in if there's some kind of a cave-in that takes place. The water department also provides inspection for plumbers' ditches. So there's a pretty strong partnership between the water department and the streets department on those types of issues. The streets department's perfectly capable of addressing the potholes on its own. We have worked very hard to upgrade the technology that we use. We have a program that we call the Guaranteed Pavement Information System. We just last year completed version 2.0, and we're working very hard on version 3.0. In order for excavation to take place, you need to get a permit through the GPIS system, and that requires a level of coordination between the excavating party, whether it's the water department or the gas utility or a plumber or whoever, and the streets department, and also between the utilities themselves to make sure that they're taking advantage of opportunities to get multiple types of work done at the same time while there's a closure. So I think the news is pretty good. The water department has and is continuing to work very hard, very closely with the streets department. There's an annual ditch meeting we just had a little while back, and we bring people together at the manager level to exchange ideas and to learn about best practices. There's a quarterly meeting that takes place among these groups, and we have a monthly meeting where we bring together all the folks who are working in the right of way to make sure we're all kind of singing from the same hymn book. We're looking at specific types of problems sometimes with individual utilities, but the water department, because they're part of the cluster, they're usually right up front. And so as we're looking at different policies, for example, a moratorium on cuts in freshly paved streets, the water department's fully up to speed in what we're trying to do. We're getting feedback from them and figuring out how to make our policies strong.
Let me ask you this question, though. If a resident calls in to 311, reports a pothole, what's the next step? What happens on the city side?
So an inspector needs to go out and take a look, and that'll take place on the city maintained streets. If it's a pothole,
So give me some time frames.
that should happen within a day or two. There's sometimes a lag that takes place on the more major streets because that's something that PennDOT is responsible for. So there's an automated communication that goes out to PennDOT, and we're trying to tighten that process up. That's been a source of a lot of frustration for people because people either didn't realize that it was a state route or not, or some years back the system wasn't working properly. So we've worked to try and fix that and to make sure that there's some redundancy in the communication with PennDOT. But if we're talking about the locally maintained streets, that's going to involve a day or two for someone in the local yard. There's 6 yards throughout the city to go out and take a look. Not everything that's called in as a pothole is a pothole, though. And so sometimes people are a little frustrated because what they're looking at is a plumber's ditch or some sort of excavation, and those cannot be repaired by the streets department until the work is done, because we wouldn't want to put, a patch on top of there when somebody's still working on. So you'll find that different folks will put plates on top of these, and sometimes these plates get shifted or moved. So we're going to try and make sure that there's some level of inspection that goes along with the work. But in the city this size, we do really we need to trust and educate as much as possible the different people who are working in the right of way to use the best practices. So there's some enforcement that we have to step up to, and we're working to try and do that.
And so the people that go out, the inspectors, are they extremely knowledgeable about analyzing the problem?
Yeah, so there's a streets department inspector who has an eye on things. There's a water department inspector who has an eye on the kind of work that's going on underneath the street, and they're generally speaking people who have a lot of experience. We're always trying to add new staff, and so yes, there's a period it takes for somebody to get the skills, the knowledge in order to provide good inspection, but we feel like we've got a pretty competent workforce. It's a question of just being spread thin as much as anything else, and so we have made consistent requests to make sure that we're building up our staff and taking advantage of opportunities to combine our resources as much as possible. So I'm happy to say that the water department, on their own jobs and for work that involves their activity in the right-of-way, has been very good about reimbursing or funding some of the staff that the streets department needs in order to do work.
So if you ask the residents of the city, you would hear a different story. The residents of the city, I'm just telling you this because are infuriated that we have not done a great job in fixing these issues. If you talk to people out there, they'll say, when are you going to fix the potholes? I get emails and texts every day from people driving in their cars telling me about things, and I've never seen this before. And so that's why I'm asking these questions, because whatever we're doing, it's not working.
Well, what I'd say is that we are getting better, but the problem's getting worse, because we have had a good 10-year period where we weren't doing the basic maintenance, paving the streets. And so what we started with, about 4 or 5 years ago was 30 miles of paving on a city that has 2,500 miles of street. So we've got ourselves up to about 100 miles. We're going to keep going to get to 130 miles. So those types of problems that result from, poorly maintained streets will start to abate over time. Last year we had a really bad winter. We broke our record for the number of potholes that appeared in the city. We exceeded 60,000 potholes in the city. So that's a lot of work that needs to get done. And so happy to say we did wrap up last year's potholes before this year started coming along, but this year's potholes are starting to pop up.
There's one situation where I was contacted on a Sunday morning. I think it was in South Philadelphia, the 100 block of Tasker Street, where it seemed like it took 6 weeks for us to get to the bottom of the problem between the pipe that was leaking and they kept filling it in, and kept calling the water department, kept filling it in, back and forth, and they never really took 6 or 7 weeks. And that's the frustration that I think the residents are feeling.
Yeah, those types of problems which involve laterals are like you say, they're a source of frustration, certainly for the residents. They're kind of complicated sometimes for us to work out, whether from the streets department perspective of finishing the surface, or the water department's perspective of trying to make sure that the defects are addressed. It is the residents' responsibility to deal with the pipe that goes from their house to the water department's infrastructure, whether it's a service line or a sewer lateral. And not everybody has the wherewithal right away to jump on problems like that.
But a lot of times they're not even aware of it, because we've told
right.
them something different.
That's right.
And the problem continues. Let me ask you this question I want to get to. Do you think it would be beneficial for us to have a licensed engineers, maybe I don't know how many we would need, 5, 10 or whatever, that are really, really top in the field, high-paying people that work for the city or independent contractors that go out and assess the problem? Because it's like this. It's like going to a doctor and the doctor not finding out what's wrong with you versus going to the specialist and the specialist identifying the problem within 2 minutes.
Well, I'd say we have extremely qualified people in the water department who can identify the problems.
This Tasker Street took 6 weeks.
I'm sorry?
The Tasker Street took 6 weeks.
Yeah, and
Another one that took 2 months on South 17th Street.
Listen, I'll take any resource that you offer. I want to be clear about that.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, how do we redeploy the assets we have and the monies we have to provide a much better level of service to the residents?
Yeah, and I think that you ask a legitimate question. There's constant work on trying to figure out how to improve. We tend to hear the horror stories, and we don't really celebrate the successes, though. So the people that are out there, like I say, are doing a great job 99.9% of the time, and we get stretched thin. So any kind of resource, whether it involves people who can kind of supplement the expertise we have, I would never, ever sneeze at that.
Have you thought of this? Because other cities have done this. Because this is such a big, hot issue for the residents. Have you thought of having a pothole hotline where we can make a commitment within X amount of time? Someone calls them back, someone goes out there, and someone fixes it?
Yeah, well, we had something that was sort of like that before. The issue is that a lot of the things that are getting called into the pothole hotline aren't potholes. And so that creates a little bit of a coordination issue in and of itself. And what we kind of figured out was they should all go to one number. So we're using 311 that way. The folks who pick up the phone on 311 have some capacity to ask questions to figure out what it is. We need to keep working on that, like I say, and so we'll be working with the other folks who work on 311 to make improvements as we're learning more about how well that works or how.
I guess what I'm saying is, whatever we're doing, I appreciate all the work that we're doing. I appreciate the successes. But in the residents' eyes, I've never seen it like I see it today.
Okay.
They don't feel that we're taking care of the issues.
Okay.
And you can ask anybody, when you drive all over the city, your car is taking a beating or whatever, or if you're on a bike, you're taking a beating. And so we need to get on top of this, and I don't think we have accomplished that yet.
Yeah, and I would just reiterate that what we're seeing is that the Band-Aids have ripped off. And that's kind of a decade-long story.
But forget that.
Yeah.
Maybe we need surgery, okay?
Yeah.
What is the surgery needed to fix the problem? That's what I want to know.
Well, I think you've got good ideas. We want to keep doing the work that we're talking about. I think the coordination is key. Like I say, a lot of what we see is work that's going on because people are making improvements, and we do want to encourage that. And you know as well as I do that the pace of improvement, whether it's construction or people rehabbing their properties, has continued to pick up. And so that's a piece of this as well. So we need to make sure that everybody is working in concert together, and I think that really is going to make a difference. But I think you do have some good ideas about other steps we could take. So.
And the other question I have is, streets and the water department have to be working really well together, I think, for this to work well.
That's right.
And I assume that's happening now. Mm-hmm. So my question then really is it the diagnosis that is the problem? Because if streets and water are working well, and we go out and diagnose exactly what the problem is, why are we not being able to take care of the problem in a faster amount of time?
Yeah, so like I say, I mean, we do that the vast majority of the time. We get to the bottom of the problem very quickly. There are certainly some painful exceptions where that hasn't been the case, and we do have to learn a little bit about that. Having the opportunity to tap additional expertise, like you say, is probably a good idea. So that's certainly something we should explore.
I think we should explore it, but also I think that if there's better coordination needed, I don't know if it's the managing director's office or whose office it is, we should take care of that and make it happen. This is a hot issue in the city.
Okay.
I mean, I can't tell you how many phone calls I get, how many people stop me on the street and say to me, "Can you fix this pothole?" I mean, I wish I had a truck. I could go out there and fix it myself.
Yeah.
I mean, someone took a picture of me on 17th Street putting up a Philadelphia Water Department horse that had fallen down because there was this huge crevice in the street because I didn't want a car to go in it.
Yeah.
And it was like that for 2 months.
So there's some good news, and when the streets department is here this afternoon, they'll talk more about it. But we are ramping up to really take a big cut at the number of potholes that are out there this spring. So hopefully you'll be hearing some thanks from people.
I guess what I'm saying is we can't. This is not incremental. This has to be dramatic.
Yeah.
And what we did yesterday is not working. So we need a new program that makes dramatic change in how we're handling this issue. Because if we do the same stuff, we'll be back here next year talking about the same issues.
Understood.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
I have some other, is it okay to continue? Sansom Street, the 1300 block of Sansom Street. There was a water leak, a water main break or whatever occurred back, I think, in July. And I know we've had meetings on this, and I know everyone's trying their best. Two things. One, when do we think that street will be reopened at this point?
So we're still looking at late May, early June for opening
Late
of
May?
Sansom.
So would you say by June 1st it should be open?
I don't want to commit to a specific date, but I would say late May, early June.
Because, I mean, just imagine if you had a business on that block.
Sure, no,
You're out of business. We have put these people out of business. I mean, I don't understand why it's taken 11 months to fix this problem. I mean, it takes 12 to 14 months to build a 30-story building, and it's taken us 11 months to fix this issue.
yeah, I mean, I'm certainly no expert in this, but the number of utilities at this intersection is, there are a lot.
I understand.
So, that's, and it's,
But I'll tell you where I think these issues are all coming from, including the potholes, coordination and planning and expertise in those areas. And I'm just going to tell everyone the same thing. If you need to go outside, whatever funds we need to pay an outside person to help us to speed up the delivery of services to our residents, it'd be worth it. Because 11 months having that street closed, having those businesses go out of business, and it's terrible. And they've had all these commitments. It was first October to be back, then it was November. And then even the mayor came out, I think, in January and said March it'll be done. And now it's June 1st. So I think it's unacceptable. 11 months to fix that problem, to me, is unacceptable delivery of city services. So, I mean, I know you're new, and I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying I'm not blaming anybody. What I'm trying to say is constructively, how do we make this a better way of delivering services to the residents of the city? And we need to change what we've done in the past, because that's not the way we should be doing it. I have some questions I'm going to ask. The current debt of the water department. Can we have an idea of the current debt of the water department?
Yes, of course. Just give me one moment, please. The total debt is around $2 billion, excluding liabilities associated with the pension program and other post-employment benefits. But revenue bonds outstanding is approximately $2 billion in principal.
$2 billion.
Yes.
And can we get the details, like the principal interest and interest rates on that debt?
Of course, no problem.
You can send it to us.
Yes, of
And
course.
who manages that portfolio of debt?
So we work collaboratively with the Treasurer's Office in all debt issuance matters. When we issue new money debt, similar to what you heard from the airport, we work with the Treasurer's Office in identifying a money manager who will invest those proceeds until spent.
Okay. And I assume we're looking at opportunities, because rates have dropped again recently, to refinance when we can to lower our cost.
Absolutely. We just closed a refunding transaction this February. It saved our rate base several $1 million. We're always looking for opportunities to reduce costs.
I mean, recently, the 10-year Treasury bonds bills went down dramatically, so they're like 2.5 or so. So there's an opportunity now for us to save some money. You have rates below 4%.
We agree. We'll continue to work hard on this. Thank you.
And does the water department perform a cost-benefit analysis for all capital projects as required by Chapter 22, Section 2200 of the Code? Like when we do a project, do we do a cost-benefit analysis as required?
Some of our work is difficult to put on a cost-benefit analysis because it's just required. Whether you have a main break, a sewer collapse, there's critical infrastructure that we have to replace.
I'm talking about capital projects. Those would be repairs, wouldn't they?
A main replacement or a sewer relining is also a capital project.
Okay. But on a bigger capital project, do we do the cost-benefit analysis? If we don't do it, I'm suggesting we do it.
Well, thank you. We'll begin looking at it
Let
more
me
closely.
rephrase the question for any department I've asked this question. If you were going to invest $1 million of your own money, you would do a cost-benefit analysis of that investment in 2 seconds. You do it for $100.
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt. And some of our investments would be hard to quantify because they are investments related to a 100-year pipe in the ground. But yes, I agree with you.
Okay.
Thank you.
In 2011, the Water Department finalized the 25-year Green City Clean Waters Plan as part of a consent order and agreement with the EPA. That was in 2011. In 2016, the Water Department issued a 5-year report which showed the city actually surpassing its initial goals. That's a good thing. How are we doing with progress towards the 10-year goals, which we need to meet by 2021?
So we are currently on track to meet our 10-year goal, and I believe as of March, we had over 1,100 greened acres, was the last
That's great.
stat I
That's
saw.
good.
Yep.
That's good. In your budget comments on page 4 of your budget detail, it shows an increase of $231,300. It says due to an estimated separation cost for drop employees. This is page 4. Can you explain what that means?
Sure, we have a lot of employees that are in the DROP program, and we're anticipating significant retirements in the upcoming year. And when we work on our budget tally, we try to evaluate the cost of what those payments will represent to our employees upon their retirement, and those costs are increasing due to accelerated retirements.
So those costs for the drop program come out of the Water Department budget?
Yes, we pay for our own, we're an enterprise fund, so all of our costs are ring-fenced from the general fund, so drop costs or payments.
That's your actual drop cost, $231,000?
Yes, that's what we believe our drop payments will be.
Okay. And also on page 4 of your budget detail, it shows a decrease of $2,776,000 in energy prices. It's great we're saving money, but can you explain how that occurred?
Sure. We are part of the city's energy office, and we benefit from the hedging program that the energy office puts in place. They're probably best positioned to give you the details, but we've seen budget certainty and incremental savings related to the efforts that they've taken to date.
All right, and on a positive note, besides other positive things, I think the Water Department and the streets did a good job, I know, on 18th Street and other streets I've seen. So it's not all, as you say, negative, but I will say my overall goal of this today is that we need to do a dramatically better job in fixing these potholes and making the city services better for the residents, the lifestyle. I mean, it's the quality of life issues for people that I've never seen it like this. So, and I know we're an old infrastructure, I know we have piping from the 1800s in our streets, but still, I think we need to figure out a better way to do it. And if we can't do small changes, you got to do a dramatic change here. So I'm happy to work with both departments.
Thank you. Yep.
But we need to figure that out.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. No further questions? Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you for
Thank you.
coming. Next department is